Alright, in this section we're going to be multiplying decimal numbers. Remember the great thing about multiplication. Number one, order doesn't matter when you're multiplying. Two, you don't need like terms to multiply. Think about what you did with fractions. Do you need common denominators to multiply? No, in fact, don't get common denominators. It makes things really nasty and ugly. Now, if I were to do something like this, if I have 4/10 times 9/100ths, how would you multiply these guys? How do you multiply fractions? Straight across. And if you do this, you have 4 times 9, which is 36. 10 times 100 is what? If you got 10 bills, 10 Benjamins, see, I'm using the slang again, try to make it relatable to you guys. You have 1,000, right? Now, how do you read this decimal? I don't want you to reduce this, I just want you to read this. How do you read this guy? 36 thousandths, right? So, let's start back over here. How do you read 4 over 10? As 4/10ths, right? How do you read 9 over 100? As what? 0.09, so that's 9/100ths, right? And you said you read this as 36 thousandths, and to do 36 thousandths, you have 36, but then the thousandths would be here? If I put the decimal before the 3, does that make that thousandths? No. Does that make that thousandths? Yes. Remember one of the things that we talked about before with decimals? Count the decimal places. How many decimal places do I have here? 3 decimal places. How many zeros do you see in that power of 10? You also see 3. That was the trick, the connection that we had there. But here's what I want you to see. You have 1 decimal place here. You have 2 decimal places here, and altogether you have 3, right? And you can easily get that by looking at the zeros that you have from the powers of 10. You have 1, 2 more zeros, that gives you 3 zeros in that product. Okay? And this is what we use, the process that we think about whenever we're trying to multiply decimals. You multiply the numbers like normal because you did that here. What's 4 times 9? 36. That's easy. But it's the rest of this. Where does the decimal point go? And that's the problem that we're going to have to pay attention to in these problems. For example, if I ask you to do 2.1 times 1.9. If off to the side you just take a moment here to estimate this, how would you estimate 2.1? So this is about 2 times what? 1.9 is about what? 2. That's about 2, so 2 times 2 is 4. So when I'm multiplying, I expect my answer to be somewhere around 4. Do y'all agree? Now, I'm going to use that same piece of paper to keep everything lined up. Do I need to line up my decimal points here? Did I say that? Not when I'm multiplying. See, multiplication doesn't care about that. When I'm multiplying, you just got to multiply like the regular numbers. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to say I've got 2.1 times 1.9, and then just do my regular multiplication. Of course, you have to know how to do multiplication in order to work these problems. So be very, very careful here. So 9 times 1 is just going to give me 9. 9 times 2 is 18. Yes? Now remember, when you're multiplying, you scoot over a step for each one you go down, right? Because you're increasing, multiplying by another power of 10, so you scoot that over. So 1 times 1 is 1, and then 1 times 2 is 2. keep everything lined up. Use the extra piece of paper like I'm showing here. So when I add all of this, I have 399. Now we know that my answer is not 399. That doesn't make any sense, right? We said that my answer should be around 4, right? So without knowing anything about decimals, okay, where would you put a decimal so that you would have a number that's about 4? You put it right here, right? How many decimal places do you have here? You have 1 decimal place. How many do you have here? You have 1. So then how many should I have altogether? I should have 2 decimal places. Notice that in the middle here, do I worry about my decimal at all? No, it doesn't matter. It only matters at the very end. But again, you cannot do this, you will not do this well if you don't know how to multiply. Okay, let's do this next guy. If I have 3.5 times 2.77, I just need to multiply these. If I have to do an estimate, what might you say here? You might round 3.5 to what? This is about 4 times what?
3.
So 4 times 3 is 12. Now, here's something I know already. I rounded up for this, and I rounded up for that, right? Which means that my estimate of 12 is going to be what? Too high or too low? It's going to be a little bit too high, right? So when I'm looking at my answer, I expect it to be just under 12. So let's see what we come up with. When I do the multiplication, do I line up my decimals?
Yes.
No. What you want to do is multiply as though there are no decimals. This is what you need to be thinking. Think about this as 35 times 277. If I ask you to multiply 35 times 277, how would you do that? How do you set it up? What does it look like?
277 on top.
So you're like me. You like to put the number that has more numbers on top and the one with the smaller numbers on the bottom, right? Okay, that's what I do. Good. We're like buddies. We think the same way. Guys. Oh, we should go like grab a cup of coffee after class or something. So I'm doing, well, it's not 277, is it? It's 2.77 times, it's not 35, but it's 3.5. Okay, so multiply. What's 5 times 7? So that's 35, and then I carry the 3, write that up there. So that's 35 and 3, which is 38, carry that 3 again. 5 times 2 plus the 3 is what?
13.
It's 13. Now remember, scoot over a step. Some people like to put an X, some people like to put a 0. I just leave a little blank spot. If your handwriting is sloppy, you might want to put something in that spot. Or if you have everything lined up very neatly in the columns like this, you don't need that. So now what's 3 times 7? 21, so this is a 2. 3 times 7 plus 2 is what? So that's 23. 3 times 2 plus 2 is 8. All right, so now I just need to add all of these. That seems nice enough. This is 5, 9, 6, 9. Now I said my estimate was around 12. Based on my estimate, where would you put a decimal point?
9 and 6.
After 9?
Between the 9 and 6.
Oh, between the 9 and the 6.
No, 9 and 6 or 9. If 9
The first
no.
one.
The first 9.
Just messing with you. So that's the only one that makes sense, right? Count your decimal places. How many do you have here? 2. How many here? So altogether you should have 3 decimal places. And that's all you have to do. It's just regular multiplication, except now you pay attention to the decimal point. That's it.